This is Mr. MegaManFan. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. You know all the things to do. Now, yesterday I'll admit I was not having a good time making my DS Pico video. I thought I needed to use a Windows PC to update the firmware on the Pico. The only Windows PC that I have is a really old laptop that probably should have been e-cycled as e-waste a long time ago, so it was not going as smoothly as I hoped. Ironically, once I connected the Pico to my MacBook, it recognized it immediately and I was able to flash it immediately. So I thought for today's video, I'm going to use the MacBook since it was working a whole lot better. And I'm demonstrating the new EverDrive GBA Pro, and what I'm doing here is dropping the firmware onto a micro SD card using my MacBook, putting said micro SD card into the GBA Pro, and then putting the EverDrive GBA Pro into a Nintendo DS Lite. And from there, it's pretty simple. This is way simpler than anything I was trying to do with the DS Pico yesterday. All I have to do is turn this on, select the firmware from the menu after it boots the first time. It goes through exactly one boot cycle, initializes, makes basic folders on your micro SD card, then you select the firmware and select installation. And it takes care of everything else. Then it reboots and you're done. But hey, what is the point of an EverDrive GBA Pro? Especially if you already have an EverDrive GBA X5, you were probably thinking, what do I need the Pro version of this EverDrive for? Well, there might be a few reasons, but first let's go over the basic features. As you can see, you can load your Game Boy Advance backups onto the micro SD card, and you can play them on demand, which is the hugest advantage of an EverDrive GBA, whether it's the X5 or the Pro, is that you don't have to bring your entire Game Boy Advance library with you everywhere you go. You can play all of your games on demand. The EverDrive also allows you to do things that your original Game Boy Advance games can't do, like save states. At any time in a game, you can hit the L and R shoulder buttons at the same time and pull up a menu. And when you do that, you'll be able to save a state, load a state, or exit back to the main menu. And you can't do that in a regular Game Boy Advance game, but here you can just switch from one game to another anytime you like. So the convenience is truly unparalleled. And because this has a tilt sensor built in, this can do something the EverDrive GBA X5 can't do. It can play Yoshi Topsy Turvy. This was a game sold by Nintendo with a tilt sensor built into the cartridge so that when you would tilt it to one side or the other, the game would recognize that you were tilting it and Yoshi would move accordingly. And as you can see, this has that same tilt sensor built into it, so if you're using games that have a tilt sensor feature, it's going to work with them. But as far as I know, there's only 2 Game Boy Advance games that take advantage of this: Yoshi and WarioWare Twisted. So most people probably weren't buying an EverDrive just to play those 2 games, but hey, if you're just now buying an EverDrive GBA for the first time, you can buy the Pro and you'll be able to play those games too. They won't be denied to you if you own them and you want to play your backups of them. So that is now available. And the one that might excite people the most is that this has the solar sensor in it as well. So Boktai, the sun in your hand, and Boktai 2 both work on this device. And what else? You can do emulation. Now, in the older GBA X5, you had to put the various Game Boy Advance files into the GBSys folder. Like, you would have NES.GBA for Game Boy Advance games. Now, it doesn't work that way in the GBA Pro. You go into the EDGBA folder, and then you go into the EDAPP or EverDrive app subfolder, and you create a folder for each emulator you want to use. Like, if you're playing .gb for Game Boy games, you create a GB folder. If you're playing .NES for Nintendo Entertainment System games, you create an NES folder. And you drop the NES GBA in that folder, you drop the GB.GBA in its respective folder. Everything gets its own folder now. So that's what you need to know for playing the emulators. And you should also know that 100% accuracy is not guaranteed when you're playing things other than Game Boy Advance games. And in my experience, it's pretty good. I find that Sega Master System, NES, Game Boy Color games all work really well on the EverDrive. They worked really well on the GBA X5. I don't find the experiences any worse on the GBA Pro. The one caveat to the whole thing is that unlike the Game Boy Advance games, you can't really just go back to the menu with the menu hotkeys. Even when I set up different hotkeys other than the two shoulder buttons, which is the default, when you're using the emulator, it kind of blocks that out because the only thing the menu does is take you back to the emulator menu. So you have to cycle the power to get out of it. But I don't really think that's a big deal if you're playing emulator games anyway, to cycle the power and go back to the main menu of your GBA. So it's fine with me. And last but not least, you can see I've got Boktai running here on the Game Boy Advance through the EverDrive GBA Pro. It's not like the game didn't work before, it's just there was no solar sensor on the GBA X5, so you couldn't charge up like you can on this new version. So this is now the one-stop shop for Game Boy Advance ROM loading if you want to take your entire library of Game Boy Advance games with you. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. I got this from StoneAgeGamer.com. You can also get it directly from Crix via his website. Whatever you do, I hope you get a chance to try out the GBA Pro. Or if you don't need these few extra games that it can play, get a GBA EverDrive X5 and save yourself a few bucks over the new version, because I'm sure people will be trading it in to get the new one. So get whichever one suits you the best. But whatever you do, hope you're having a good day. Hope you're enjoying playing games any way you can. And I'll see you again soon.